I mean, if you look at the season, Alcaraz is losing many more matches than Sinner. So many more.
Who wins it?
And you think he should not. Why? But because he's not always there.
The tennis internet is losing its mind right now. One Netflix documentary, 3 episodes, and suddenly every tennis pundit with a microphone has an opinion about how Carlos Alcaraz spends his nights.
Who do you think's gonna have a better career at the end, Alcaraz or Sinner?
The clips are everywhere, the takes are flying, and the debate, the one about whether a party lifestyle can coexist with genuine tennis greatness,
I'll tell you mine first. I'll say Sinner because Alcaraz loves girls.
has finally gotten too loud to ignore. Here's what fired it up. Alcaraz's own Netflix series set out to expose the real man behind the trophies. On camera, he openly admitted he went to Ibiza against his team's wishes. His agent warned him. His fitness coach called him selfish. His own coach, Juan Carlos Ferrero, a former world #1, said the words every fan is now quoting, that Alcaraz's approach proves he may never dominate tennis the way the all-time greats did. Then Roberto Bautista Agut stepped into the fire, a fellow Spaniard, a respected professional. He said it publicly, that going to bed at 7 a.m. does not build grand slam careers. The Spanish tennis community is divided. The fans are picking sides, and the experts are not staying quiet. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. This channel is where the real tennis conversation lives, because what actually happened next is the part nobody expected. Let's go back to where this whole thing actually started. It's 2023. Alcaraz has just lost to Djokovic in the French Open semifinals. Cramps, nerves, a brutal exit on the biggest clay stage in the world. His friends are heading to Ibiza, and Alcaraz, the reigning US Open champion, the youngest world #1 in ATP history, decides he's going too. He knew his team wouldn't like it. He went to his agent, Albert Molina, first. Told him he needed a few days. Molina pushed back hard. Queen's Club was the following week. Wimbledon was right after that. The grass season was already knocking on the door. But Alcaraz had made up his mind. He packed his bags and flew to Ibiza, and he didn't go there to sit by a pool reading a nutrition guide. In his own words, from the documentary, on camera, no ambiguity, he said, "In Ibiza, I'm not going to lie, it's pretty much all about partying and going out." He called it going to reventar, a Spanish word that roughly translates to letting yourself explode, blow off every valve, release everything. 3 days, 3 nights. Then he came back, won Queen's Club, won Wimbledon, defeated Djokovic, the same man who had just beaten him in Paris, in a Wimbledon final that had the entire sporting world on its feet. Then he did it again in 2024, another Ibiza trip, another pre-Wimbledon escape against his team's wishes. His fitness coach, Juanjo Moreno, didn't mince words. He told Alcaraz directly that the decision was selfish. And Alcaraz won Wimbledon again. 2 years, 2 Ibiza trips, 2 Wimbledon titles. So you'd think the debate would be dead by now. You'd think the scoreboard would have silenced it. But that's not what happened, because in April 2025, the Netflix documentary landed, and suddenly the footage was everywhere. The quotes, the confessions, the internal conflict inside his team. And people who had privately held reservations about Alcaraz's approach finally had something concrete to point at. That's when Juan Carlos Ferrero's words hit differently. Ferrero isn't just any coach, he's a former world #1, a Roland Garros champion. The man who took a raw, emotionally volatile teenager from Murcia and built him into the most exciting player on the planet. When Ferrero was first approached to coach Alcaraz, he turned down requests from other top players to do it. He saw something in that kid that was worth committing to fully. He has more credibility on this subject than almost anyone alive. And in that documentary, he said something that stopped the tennis community cold. He said Alcaraz has a different way of understanding work and sacrifice. So different, Ferrero admitted, that it made him genuinely question whether Carlitos could become the best player in history. Not whether he was talented enough, not whether he had the shots, whether he had the commitment to sustain greatness across 15 years. That's a profound thing for a coach to say about his own player, in public, on a Netflix series watched by millions. And it didn't come from frustration in the moment. It came from a man who had watched Alcaraz up close for years and understood exactly what the gap between brilliant and all-time great actually looks like. The fans felt it, the pundits ran with it, and then Bautista Agut, a respected veteran with a career that required enormous discipline to sustain, got asked about the documentary at the Madrid Masters. His response was clear and direct. Top-level tennis demands everything. Going to bed at 7 a.m. is not compatible with winning Grand Slams. And if Alcaraz wants to reach the level of the Big Three, he needs to compete at the highest standard for 15 years straight. Now here's where it gets more complicated. Bautista Agut was not being malicious. He said explicitly that he believes Alcaraz is intelligent enough to figure it out over time. He framed it as a warning delivered with respect, not a public attack, but the Spanish media ran the headline. The quote spread, and within 48 hours it had become the loudest conversation in tennis. So loud, in fact, that Bautista Agut later had to clarify his own words. He said the press had taken his comments out of context, that he and Alcaraz have a strong personal relationship, and that what was meant as private concern had been turned into a controversy neither of them wanted. That clarification matters, but it also tells you something. The fact that a measured observation from a fellow professional caused that level of reaction says everything about how sensitive this topic has become inside the sport. There's also a longer historical argument lurking underneath all of this. A veteran journalist who covered 147 Grand Slams from Wimbledon 1977 all the way to 2022 drew a comparison that cut deep. Bjorn Borg, arguably the most naturally gifted player of his generation. 11 Grand Slams, 5 consecutive Wimbledon titles, and then gone, retired at 26 after choosing a lifestyle that the brutal demands of professional tennis eventually exposed. Borg himself later said he regretted walking away. But by the time he tried to return, the window had closed permanently. The journalist's point wasn't that Alcaraz is Borg. The point was that elite tennis has always been ruthless toward players who underestimate what sustained dominance actually costs. Talent buys you the first few years. Discipline determines whether you last long enough to build a legacy that the sport remembers forever. And that is the exact argument the experts are making now. But here's the thing the critics keep running into. The results won't cooperate. In 2025, Alcaraz went 22 wins and 1 loss on clay, the best clay winning percentage on the entire tour that season. He won Monte Carlo for the first time, won Rome, won Roland Garros again, saving 3 championship points in the longest final in the tournament's history, coming back from 2 sets down against Jannik Sinner in a match that lasted 5 hours and 29 minutes. He then won the US Open, defeating Sinner again in the final. He claimed the year-end #1 ranking for the second time in his career. Then in January 2026, he won the Australian Open, beating Djokovic in the final, completing the career Grand Slam at the age of 22, the youngest man in history to do it. He is now 7 wins and 1 loss in Grand Slam finals. Only Djokovic and Nadal have accumulated major titles at a faster rate across their entire careers. When legendary coach Rick Macchi, someone who has worked with some of the greatest players the sport has ever produced, assessed Alcaraz's trajectory, he said Carlitos is the best player by far at his age ever to hold a racket. That's not a small statement. That's someone with a lifetime of reference points making a sweeping judgment. That's not the resume of someone whose lifestyle is holding him back. That's the resume of someone operating at a level the sport has rarely seen at this age. And Alcaraz knows exactly what people are saying. He's not pretending the criticism doesn't exist, but he's also not apologizing for who he is. After winning Roland Garros 2025 with his family and friends down from Murcia, he stood in front of the microphones and said it plainly. "We're doing things the way we believe is right, prioritizing enjoyment. That, to me, is the best way." There's something important in that framing. He said we, not I. His team, despite the documentary footage of internal friction, continued to back the approach. Even Ferrero, who voiced those doubts on camera, stayed with him through 2025 before they parted ways at the end of the season. In December, the split was described as unexpected. But while they were together, the system, unconventional as it looks from the outside, kept producing at a historic rate. The fans defending Alcaraz have also reached for a name that makes the critics deeply uncomfortable: Rafael Nadal. A fan from Mallorca, Nadal's home island, put it directly in a discussion that went widely shared across tennis forums. Nadal, they pointed out, was no monk in his youth. Local summer parties, late nights, a social life that didn't look anything like the robotic sacrifice the Big Three mythology tends to project onto them. Nadal still won 22 Grand Slams, still played at the top of the sport for 2 full decades. The idea that the Big Three achieved what they did through pure, joyless self-denial is a myth that the actual people around them have never fully supported. Djokovic himself stepped into this conversation and defended Alcaraz when the criticism was at its loudest. He didn't dismiss the discipline question. He put it in context. Alcaraz is 21 years old. He has won 4 Grand Slams. What more, Djokovic asked, do you actually want from him right now? Coming from the man who holds the all-time record for Grand Slam titles, that kind of endorsement carries real weight. But here is the honest tension at the center of all this, and it's one the scoreboard alone cannot resolve. Alcaraz has been dealing with injuries. The 2024 clay season was disrupted. The 2025 clay season started brilliantly, but included a muscle issue that forced an early exit at the Madrid Open. A right adductor problem, then a left leg concern on top of it. His body has already been sending signals across multiple seasons. The question the experts are quietly asking isn't whether the Ibiza trips directly caused the injuries. Nobody is making that crude a connection. The question is whether the cumulative weight of a lifestyle that prioritizes fun alongside relentless competition creates a margin of physical risk that quietly compounds over time, in ways that don't show up immediately but arrive later when the body stops absorbing what the mind keeps asking of it. That is a legitimate question, one that doesn't have a clean answer yet, and won't for years. Because Alcaraz is 22. The 15-year window Bautista Agut referenced hasn't even properly opened. The players who burned out on talent and lifestyle didn't always show the damage early. Sometimes it arrived in the years when the body simply stopped forgiving the choices that once felt harmless. 7 Grand Slams is extraordinary. The career Grand Slam at 22 is a record that now belongs to tennis history permanently. But Federer won 20, Nadal won 22, Djokovic won 24. If Alcaraz's stated goal, said explicitly on camera in his own words, is to reach that conversation, then the volume of winning required from this point forward demands a body that holds together across a minimum of 10 more years. Brutal, grinding professional tennis. That means recovery. That means sleep. That means the choices made in the quiet weeks between tournaments carry consequences that don't announce themselves until it's too late to reverse them. The experts raising this aren't doing it to diminish what Alcaraz has built. Ferrero was trying to push his player toward a standard he genuinely believed was reachable. Bautista Agut clarified he wants nothing more than to see Carlitos succeed at the highest level for as long as possible. These are credible voices motivated by respect, not resentment. The argument has never been that he's failing. The argument is that he's making the road steeper than it needs to be. And tennis history, long, specific, unforgiving tennis history, keeps offering examples of what happens when the road gets steep enough. Whether Alcaraz becomes the cautionary tale or the exception that rewrites every assumption about what elite preparation actually requires, that story is still being written, point by point, tournament by tournament, season by season. And this channel will be here for every chapter of it. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button now. And share this with the tennis fan in your life who has an opinion on Alcaraz, because trust me, they absolutely do. The conversation is nowhere near finished.